Good day, everyone. I am Mark, your fat friend.
And I'm James, your black friend.
And this is the Fat
And Black
Connection, where we talk about anything and everything.
As long as it's interesting to us.
On today's show, we will be discussing some very serious topics, such as pay-wage gaps, mass shootings, and so much more.
Yeah. So listen, this show is 100% interactive. So your comments and questions are super important and super appreciated.
Yes, so please type your thoughts, your questions, your comments. Type them into that box. We'll address them as much as we can.
Well, as long as they're interesting to us, of course.
Yes, that's right. And now let's move into an area of, we've done a couple shows now, and we have had some feedback from some listeners. Yeah, two whole shows. Before I go into some of the feedback we've gotten, I do want to start the show off on a little bit of a light note. It's kind of interesting. There is a show out there that is called the Black and Fat Connection. It is a podcast. They only have a total of 3 episodes, and each episode averaged about 2 minutes. So in our first episode, we created more content than they did in 3. So, yes, I don't know anything about the show. I haven't listened to it, but I did find it interesting. But so let's look at some viewer comments, listener comments, because some of these people were listening to after the fact. So this is some great stuff, guys. Keep it up. You two are too funny. Tuned in and really enjoyed it. Great topics. Some new name ideas. Dark and girthy.
Yeah. I saw that.
Thick and semi-sweet. Sweatpants and warm-ups. Swing and a miss.
Yeah.
2 out of 3. That's not bad. Someone asked, how do I interact? Well, this is the place to do it. This is right now we are broadcasting live via Facebook Live. Obviously, if you're listening to this through a podcast service such as Anchor or Apple Podcasts or anything like that, then you can't directly interact with us. But we do have a Facebook page, Fat and Black Connection. We have an email address, fatandblackconnect@gmail.com. So there's a lot of ways that you can interact with us. Obviously, if you have a Facebook, that's going to be the easiest option. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. So you can find us out there if you really wanted to.
We're out here.
Another comment that we got. Long, yes, but I enjoyed the listen. That's what she said. I think I like that y'all show different aspects of points of view while still questioning ideas or thoughts.
Yeah,
very poignant. Listening to this long after the fact is great. So clearly that must have been somebody that watched it maybe live and then went back and listened. I'm not sure, but yes, it goes down better the second time probably. So those are some comments that we've gotten out of our first 2 episodes. So it's good. We're getting some feedback. We appreciate y'all. We hope you enjoy what we're doing. And if you don't, then go find something else to do. So a couple follow-ups from our first 2 episodes. So first and foremost, I do want to say that I went out and stimulated the economy. I bought a couple of new cell phones.
There you go.
Yeah. So, I dropped a couple grand, on buying some phones. So, obviously I didn't blow my stimulus money, but, I felt like I could do my part. Also, we needed new service. The service that we have here is pretty bad, and so we switched to a different provider. So hopefully that'll be better for us. And one other follow-up, Disneyland is officially reopening on April 30th.
Yep.
So in our first episode, we did talk about Disneyland reopening a little bit, and so I thought it would be important to call that out.
Yeah. No, that's exciting.
Indeed. So one other thing to call out really quickly, as we shift gears a little bit, is you are now 2 weeks away from your COVID shot. You got the Janssen & Janssen, or Johnson & Johnson, whatever.
Yes, sir.
And so therefore, theoretically, you are as protected as you're going to be.
Good.
Well, as long as you're within that, 74% or whatever.
Yeah. So I
So
mean, I'm still masking up and everything else. So it's
sure.
not like, yeah, we got some variants running around out there. So definitely, I'm not trying to catch those. So
Yeah, but theoretically, you could have a person with COVID directly in your face, cough in your face, and there's only about a 26% chance that you'll actually catch it. So
yeah, but at the same time, I'd rather not face that.
yes, indeed. So speaking of COVID, we actually had an outbreak at my kids' childcare this last week. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So unfortunately, we got a notice early after we broadcasted on Tuesday of last week. We got a notice that some of the teachers at the daycare had tested positive for COVID, so they were going to be shutting down a couple of the classrooms. My kid's classroom was not affected, so that was cool. Then the next day, we got a notice that a couple more teachers had tested positive, so they were closing down another classroom. Still not mine. Okay. Then the third day, we got the notice that they were closing down mine. So unfortunately, last week on Thursday and Friday, my kid had to be home with me, and unfortunately, I had to take some time away from work to be with her. And the beauty of working for government is I got paid to do it. So
there you go.
Yes. But yeah, it's interesting. We keep thinking that we're heading in the right direction, and then these kind of things happen, and yeah,
2 steps forward,
yeah,
3 steps back.
Yeah, man. I'm thankful my kid is okay. I'm okay. My wife's okay. But
yeah,
they're reopened. They reopened yesterday. So but
So
still, it's scary. It's a scary couple of days because you're waiting for the shoe to drop, right? You're waiting to find out that it's a teacher from your kid's classroom. You're waiting to find out, you're taking your temperatures every day, like multiple times a day. Do I have a fever? Does my kid have a fever? So it was a tense couple of days, but both my wife and I have had our first round of shots. So,
right.
And we both got Moderna. So that, even with just the first shot of Moderna, you're at 81%, I believe, efficacy. So, we weren't terribly worried, but
it's still a concern.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. But so like the school, did they shut down? I'm sure. Did they shut the whole thing down and do like a deep clean and then before they reopen? Okay.
Yeah. So they were doing deep cleans every night as they were announcing them that, hey, this room's getting shut down, but we're going to be deep cleaning it. And then finally on Wednesday night, when they said, hey, we're shutting it down completely, they went ahead and, deep cleaned, I assume, probably all weekend. So
spray it down.
Yeah. Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, talking about crazy, moving into an extremely serious topic. We have seen in the last 2 weeks or less than, we have seen 2 mass shootings. Just yesterday in Colorado, and last week in Georgia.
Yeah, that's 18 lives that for no reason just cut short. And there's no words. There's no words for the families that have lost these people, man. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and whether these are, and I'm not saying that these are, because no one has come out and said as such, whether these are acts of crazy people, whether these are acts of terrorism, whether these are acts of, whatever the case may be, I think it affects us all as a society in a hard way. I know for me, having a wife, having a kid, last year or the year before, when there were all of those shootings that seemed to just keep happening at Walmart, there was a long period of time where I didn't want, my wife or kid going to Walmart. I would go do all the shopping.
Well, how do you think I felt when
so
I work in Walmarts, and even still, it just didn't seem like there was any safety precautions. outside that. Like I even asked them, like I remember after the one happened, I think it was at a Walmart in Texas, I believe it was. And I said, hey, are you guys going to be changing up anything like safety protocols? No. And I was just like, bro, like this directly affected your company. Like you would think they would have stepped something up. I mean, hell, after there was a post that they were going to possibly attack Walmarts during after the George Floyd killing, the Walmarts in this area, oh, by all means, they shut down at 8 o'clock, for God's sakes, to make sure that everybody was out, and they were barricading the doors for that. But there was a shooting at one of your stores, and needless to say, it's not like it's gonna, every store is gonna have one of those. And we shouldn't have them, period. But that's beside the fact. But you didn't do any safety precautions for that?
I mean, so you've ran, a casino before. You've been part of leadership in different companies, and you can't make snap decisions, right? And Walmart, the largest retail chain in North America, hundreds of thousands of locations across the U.S., billions of dollars generated in revenue. You can't change on a dime, but I don't disagree with you. I do think that there is a lack of establishing protocols. No, it's not going to happen overnight, but when we've seen these things happen, time and time again, and it's unfortunate, but I feel like for me, they are becoming commonplace almost. When you look at what we've done, where we've come in our lifetimes, you and I, we are both children of the 80s and early 90s, and we lived through observing Columbine, which I think also took place in Colorado. That was, I think, the first time it was in your face. There was a lot of camera footage. There was a lot of there was a story there because they were able to find out all this information about these kids and how they planned everything. And here we are, 25 years later or so, and this happens yesterday in Colorado at a grocery store, and I feel like we're almost becoming, as a society, desensitized to these things because they are happening so frequently.
Yeah, no, and that's the sad and scary part of it, because we can't become desensitized to this stuff due to the fact that if you become desensitized to it, how do you react? Like when those things happen, you have to know how to react in those situations. And I mean, and it's like I said, I just don't know.
And they're doing it in schools, right? They have the active shooter, drills. If you think about working for different companies, they have what's called Code Adam, where there's a lost child in the store. There's a protocol. This is what you do. Somebody mans these exits. You lock all the doors. No one's in or out until the child is found.
Right.
But there doesn't seem to be any kind of protocol within major retail outlets that would be similar in concept. This situation is happening. Here's how we react.
Right. And I believe there are some stores that have kind of they have active shooter protocols, but it's just something that you can't. I don't know, in a big store in some cases, it'd be kind of hard to relay that information to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there are training classes at most of the companies I've worked for in this situation. This is what you do: run, hide, fight. Things like that. But I haven't seen a good layout in a specific store. Hey, this is what you do based on where you are in the store. And as you said, you work inside of Walmart. You do not work for Walmart. But there is nothing for you. You're luckily, as you've told me, you work in the back of most of these locations, and so
and my aisles are a lot of times further back. So like if I'm in there and I were to hear, like somebody shooting or anything, that some sort of ruckus, I know how to not only get myself out of that situation, but if there are people near me, I can also help them get back in a way that we will not hinder anybody, any officers trying to possibly get in the building, but we will also not be endangering ourselves, because we can stay out of major pathways and things like that. So
yeah, and just reported this morning, obviously since yesterday there have been calls for assault weapon bans, things of that nature, and President Biden himself has come out and said that he's maybe looking at executive action for gun control. This is the knee jerk that I think happens a lot, and these are not long-term solutions.
yeah.
These are in the moment reactions, and still a lot of the time nothing ends up coming of it.
And that's the sad part is, there should be, of course, because this is one of those topics that anytime you bring it up, it's like, oh, they're trying to take our guns. And it's like, bro, no, we just need some sort of lasting change that will be effective. That's the main thing, is that if you have some sort of criminal record, if you have domestic abuse charges, if you have history of mental illness, there should be certain things that are set in place that make it harder to dang near impossible to be able to buy a gun. Like a blind dude can get a gun. I don't know. I don't understand. Like, that's just weird to me. You know what I'm saying?
I guess my pushback to what you're saying though is, when you talk about mental illness, for example, who should get to decide what that would look like? You look at different states, right? Here, we both live in Nevada. This is an open carry state. It's pretty easy to get a concealed carry permit. And so who should be the one that gets to decide whether or not I should be allowed to have a gun?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's one of those, it's a sticky subject, man. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. And, a viewer just made a great comment. Who does a ban affect? Criminals or law-abiding citizens?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're going to commit a crime, you're going to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
And by no means am I saying that there shouldn't be some types of reform. I am not a type of person that goes out and says everyone should have any kind of gun or firearm they want. We should all be allowed to have flamethrowers. We should all be allowed to have grenade launchers. No, I do think that there is things within reason, but to say we're going to ban, this cartridge that holds 10 bullets where you can only have this cartridge that holds 8 bullets, I don't know. Now we're splitting hairs. If you want to have a lasting effect, you've got to do something that's going to actually positively change society as a whole, and we're not heading in that direction.
Well, it's crazy that like Australia had a huge mass shooting, and I can't remember what year that was. They had a huge mass shooting, and they just did away with all guns in general. They just did away with all of them. Now, I understand because of the Constitution, like right to bear arms. But at the same time, that's also just, I don't know. Changes can be made. And again, do we make the changes to that to make it that, certain, that's
So
kind of where I get thrown. But
I got to ask, so are you ultimately saying that you believe we would be better off as a society of no guns?
no, I'm not. Listen, no, I'm just saying I don't know. Like, really, I don't know the answer here. I'm just saying this is an action that Australia's government took.
Sure.
Yeah, that's so I'm saying that's
Okay.
that's what I'm saying that's
So
an action they took.
So yesterday's shooting in Colorado, it's been reported that the gentleman had an AR-15 style gun. I haven't seen any reports of what actual gun he had. Where comparatively to last week
I just heard
in Georgia,
long gun.
Yeah,
is that the same thing?
An AR-15 would be a long gun, but AR-15 typically is semi-automatic. Where comparatively last week in Atlanta, Georgia, the shootings were taken out by a handgun. Which was literally just purchased by the shooter, I believe that day. So, and when we don't have really any facts yet on Colorado, on motives, on anything yet. We know the name of the shooter, but I won't say that here because I don't ever believe in giving those people anything more than what they deserve, which what they deserve is to be thrown in a pen and locked away for the rest of their lives, in my opinion. But in Atlanta, we have we have some facts, we have some reported facts. We know that the shooter in that situation had sex addiction, and was he felt that he could curtail his sex addiction by taking out people that worked in massage parlors that he had frequented himself.
That's that seems like such a lame excuse.
Yeah, I mean, again, right? You and I are not inside the head of crazy people.
Right.
I don't believe myself to be crazy, which sometimes they say that is a sign of craziness. I find myself to be a completely sane individual, and so when I sit here and I think about, we knew we wanted to talk about this situation, and as I was sitting here thinking about it, I'm trying to get inside the head of an individual, and I just can't. I can't get there.
I don't know. Now, mind you, I don't. This is not an addiction that I have. I mean, I have no problem sharing it here. I haven't had sex in like close to 3 years now. But at the same time, like I've also never been in that situation where like I want to take somebody out because of it. Like if I ever have like a bad day, what do I'll come home, I'll throw on a video game that, like an Assassin's Creed or something, and I'll take my frustration out that way. I'm not a gun guy. I mean, I've gone to shooting ranges. I know a lot of people that do have guns, and we've gone out and we've shot and stuff like that. But I have never I've been angry to the point where like I'm like, but I'm not. I stop it there. I lock myself away, decompress. Like I said, throw on a video game, and just and go at it that way. And I mean, I understand that other people do things differently, but just killing people I just don't see that. That's
well, yeah, and you did a play on words there a little bit with having a bad day, and that was a very poor comment made by the public information officer from the police department in Georgia, where he in essence said that the shooter had a bad day. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Ultimately, again, we're talking about the frame of mind, right? So this individual supposedly is a Christian, had gone to a sex addiction clinic to try and, I don't know, pray it away, or try and figure out a way to suppress those sexual desires. And so if the person legitimately in their own head thought that what they were doing was to help themselves, that's a really scary place to be.
No doubt.
That's very much, when we think about shootings, one that plays out in my head recently was in Nevada, in Las Vegas. um that happened just a couple years ago, and that situation, we still don't have any more context. We don't know why the guy did what he did. He was smart, if you will, because here in Nevada we are open carry, and concealed carry is easy to get, and so he locked himself up in a hotel room, and did what he did from there, where he wouldn't potentially have other people around him that might have guns to stop him. um it's that situation. We have no frame of reference on why he did what he did. With this guy in Georgia, we're getting some insight into why he did what he did, and I do clearly think that this probably is a situation of mental illness of some kind. But again, how does that get addressed? Should he, for having checked himself into a sex addiction clinic last year, should he have lost his right to own a gun?
Yeah. Again, I I do not know. What's this Oakland, California is reducing police officers with social workers.
Yeah, so
The
it
goal
sounds
is
like,
to help those deal with stress and other issues of life. Do you feel that this is the right direction?
so it sounds, and I don't know if this is true, but one of our listeners right now, watchers, viewers, is saying that in Oakland, California, they are increasing the number of social workers and decreasing the number of police officers, to try and help people deal with stress. uh, is this the right direction? For me personally, no. I don't think that that's going to help anything. I think reducing police forces, especially in cities that have a higher crime rate, um, that's probably the wrong direction to go. I think you find ways to cut expenses from other areas and still increase those social workers. I mean, California in general, and especially most cities in California, are bloated. They overspend. They spend on things that I don't personally agree with, and so I would say no. That people need, these cities should be spending money where it needs to be spent, which is, running the city, keeping the streets, paved, keeping the citizens protected. Um, and any dollars aside from that, I don't think hiring more social workers is a bad idea. But ultimately, if you're going to a social worker, it's likely because you have some kind of criminal background. And so a lot of the times what we're seeing in these mass shooting situations is that these are people that don't really have a criminal background.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really necessarily help there. We have another
Yeah.
comment from another listener viewer. The police force should never be thinned and replaced with social workers. Social workers would help, but should never take place of a peace officer or police officer. It should be in addition to, and that's basically what I
No,
just said, and
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
think
what do you think?
no, I mean, I agree with the same thing. Like, I don't think that we should be reducing police forces by any means. Especially, like, I mean, yes, I think in situations, I think that they have like a social worker go with the officer, and so if it's like a mental illness case where they can uh, words. I'm sorry, I'm lost for words. can de-escalate that person and try and bring them down. That's the only thing I mean I can really think of that would be. I mean, I think like both in conjunction together, I agree with. But like replacing officers with social workers, I don't really like that idea too much.
Yeah. I think this is a good spot for us to take a moment of silence to remember those that have lost their lives in this last week. And then we'll switch topics a little bit and move into our pay gap discussion afterwards. But let's take a moment of silence. All right. So, the next topic that we wanted to discuss, and it is a serious topic as well, but is women in sports pay differences. This is a real thing. This is a fact, and the reason that this came to light is this week there was an image making the rounds on ESPN and all over Facebook and Twitter and everything, and it was comparing WNBA's Sue Bird versus NBA's LeBron James.
Do you have that?
I don't have that image readily available. I apologize, but in essence, they both have won 4 world championships. They both have played
17 years.
Yeah, for 17 years. But the pay gap is quite immense. I believe LeBron James is making $48 million a year, where Sue Bird was making
200. I think it was like 210,000 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Somewhere in the mid to low 200,000s. So obviously there's quite a gap there.
That's a Grand Canyon size gap, bro.
Yes. Okay. So this is the interesting thing, though. When they point out those kind of statistics, saying LeBron's making 48 million, where this person's making only 200 and some odd $1,000, what they're tending to leave out is revenue generation differences as well, though.
Yeah.
I did some statistics, or I looked up some statistics over the weekend after we decided we wanted to talk about this. And what I found interesting is that in the NBA, they are generating in an average season over $8.5 billion a year. $8.5 billion a year.
No, yeah.
Where the WNBA is generating 60 million.
That's huge.
So my point being, you can't pay Bird
the same
$48 million a year, because if you were, that's be
pretty much over your entire revenue.
Yeah, over 2/3 of the league's revenue. Not a team, the league.
Just the leagues, yeah.
The average team in the NBA is bringing in about $288 million a year.
Right.
The average WNBA team is bringing in about $5 million a year.
Yeah, no, and now this is something like for me, like I'm not gonna lie, I have made jokes about the WNBA. I have. I'm not gonna lie. And then I remember talking with somebody and exactly what you're bringing up. The WNBA doesn't get nearly as much viewership as the NBA does. They don't nearly have as much merchandise out there as the NBA does. I mean, the only time I think I've even seen WNBA merchandise was at a WNBA game. And that,
or online at WNBA.com.
Right. But I mean,
they do not support this website. They do not support our show. They do not. We are not sponsors for them.
Right.
No, but that's exactly it, though, right? My point to this whole conversation, and I am not trying to be misogynistic. I'm not trying to be a sexist. I'm trying to be looking at things from a fair standpoint, and you cannot pay someone a dollar to match someone else doing a similar job if one is generating more revenue than the other. You know,
Yeah.
The same is true comparing LeBron James to I don't know, a sixth man on any given NBA team. They're not going to pay that guy $48 million a year.
He's lucky if he even sees like a mill, bro.
LeBron James makes what he makes because he is the best player of this generation. I will not say of all time. That'll be determined later.
But no, but the fact is, and also with LeBron, I mean, a good portion of his money is not even like he has his school in Cleveland that he's putting money into. He has.
I don't know that it's fair to say that just because he's putting his money into.
No, I'm not talking about that.
He also just spent a bunch of money to become a part owner of the Boston Red Sox. So
right. So I mean, but I'm saying like that money is. I mean, other people are doing big things with their money too. But I'm just saying, like, I know he's definitely into some philanthropy stuff as well.
Sure. One of our viewers has said, if the public gave the WNBA the same amount of viewership and stadiums, then yes. Sadly, there is no money there for the same pay. You could say the blame is on the citizens for not watching them play. To be honest, I don't watch either, this person said. So for me, I've watched both. I have sat down and watched an entire WNBA game from start to finish. And for me personally, it's painful. They are extremely low-scoring games. It is a slower pace of play. It is a lot more missed shots. It's just not as enjoyable for me personally. And that was kind of one of the main points I wanted to make in this pay gap conversation around basketball specifically is men, we like to watch men's sports. Women seem to like to watch men's sports. There's not a lot of support for women's sports, I would say in general, aside from maybe women's soccer. I don't think there is a whole lot of support out there. And so, it's just like anything else. You have to make money to spend money, and you have to spend money to make money.
I've been to it. I went to a WNBA game, and I think I paid more attention to like my drinks and snacks than I did the actual game.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that they can't be enjoyable. You get a very similar experience as to going to a NBA game. I've been to numerous. I have not been to a WNBA game. I've been to a women's college game.
I mean, I would like to see I would love to see these women just like, there's only been like a couple women in WNBA that have actually dunked, and they could. It's like, bruh, like, that's exciting. Like, you throw down like that, bruh.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, so to that point, right? What is exciting in basketball, right? So dunks,
fast breaks, like
blocks,
right?
You don't get a lot of that in WNBA. And so again, I don't know. Let's look at some other sports. So I did some research, just for funsies. So people think that football players are overpaid, but I thought it important to point out that. We talked about the NBA generates about $8.5+ billion a year in revenue. The NFL generates almost $13 billion a year in revenue. So, that's almost $400 million per team.
Those guys have actually a lot shorter careers in most cases too.
Yeah, you've got 32 teams. In each of those markets that they're in are generating a ton of tax dollars for those areas that they're in. So a good comparative study that I was able to do, after looking at the basketball, would be looking at golf. So looking at Professional Golfers Association versus the Ladies Professional Golfers Association, the only year or the most recent year that I was able to find data, full data for, was in 2014. And, again, comparatively, PGA generated $1 billion in revenue, where the LPGA only generated $100 million, 10%.
Oh, crap.
So, when you look comparatively at male golfers versus female golfers, the purses, if you will, are going to be a larger amount for men's because they're generating more revenue.
You know what? I don't think I've even seen I've maybe seen a women's long shot contest on golf TV or Golf Channel, whatever that is. I don't think I've actually even. I mean, there's. I don't actually sit down and watch them now. My father, on the other hand, he will actually record. He will DVR an entire Masters or FedEx Cup, whatever they have, and he will actually watch those back. I'm like, Dad, I could tell you who wins this if you, but he'll actually watch those, and I'm at loss of words. I don't think I've ever seen like the equivalent of one of those, like a Masters or anything like that, for the women.
They have them. They exist. They are not as widely broadcast. So again, it comes back to revenue. Okay. Is revenue generated by these leagues, are some of that revenue is obviously broadcast revenue, right? Right. I don't know who hosted the Masters this last year. Let's say it was NBC. They're paying the PGA to have the right to host that, right? To air right. that. I think it was NBC, but so my suspicion would be that these same major television networks are not paying for the LPGA Masters, whatever the equivalent is there. And there are 4 majors in the women's as well. I do know that. A couple of interesting things, looking at 2019, some of the top paid professional sports players in the world. For men, the top 5. Let's see how many of these people you recognize, James. Lionel Messi was number 1 at $127 million.
He plays soccer, right?
Okay, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Hey, listen, the only reason I even know that right now is because he's on like Pepsi bottles.
Well, see?
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo, $109 million.
Also a football player. That's
correct. Neymar, not to be confused with the underwater Atlantean.
Neymar. No, Neymar, he's like the high. I know the highest paid, a lot of the highest paid players in general are football players from Europe.
Yes. So the only one out of the top 5 that isn't a football player is Roger Federer.
Who tennis?
Tennis, that's correct. He's 5th highest paid in 2019 at $93.4 million.
Really?
Yeah. Now, comparatively, so again, Roger Federer, number 5.
5, right?
$93.4 million.
Okay.
In 2019, Serena Williams, number 1 woman,
right?
$29.2 million.
Yeah.
So again, that's tennis, right? Both of those are tennis. Roger Federer, highest paid tennis player, $93.4 million. Serena Williams, highest paid female tennis player, $29.2 million.
Wait, Federer is how much?
93.4. So,
and she is 29?
Yeah, so basically a $60+ million pay difference.
And people love to watch Serena.
Clearly not as much as they love to watch Roger Federer.
Federer, apparently. Yeah, I guess that is that's a fact.
Here's a good point somebody made. Do you think a part of the issue is media limiting what we can watch? Also, we were asked, do we watch women's tennis?
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
I think, I think women's tennis, to me, is pretty on par with men's tennis.
Bro, those women go hard in tennis, bro. Like super hard.
Yeah, I mean, they may not hit as fast when they're hitting their serves, but as James said, they go hard. So, I think that might be part of it, right? When I was saying earlier that we watch men's basketball, but we're not as inclined to watch women's basketball. I think it's because when we watch the men running up and down the court with those fast breaks, making those dunks, it's engaging, right? You're getting those endorphins, if you will, where, just watching women's basketball, you don't get the same thing. it's also not a fair comparison to compare watching basketball live in person to baseball live in person. They're two different games, right? And that's
Oh
what I
my
feel.
God.
That's what I feel about men's versus women's basketball. I feel like it's almost two different games.
Hey, that's a very fair comparison right there. That's a super fair comparison. I can agree with you on that.
Where with tennis, legit, like the girls, they're going hard, and it is engaging, and it's a fast pace of play with tennis in general. You're not sitting there watching them hitting it back and forth for 10 minutes. You don't see that in men's either. It's a quick, fast pace game. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I have recently sat and watched an entire tennis tournament, but if I hear there's a good match on, I'll turn it on. If there's a live, with some of the big players locally, then I'd be interested to go. So I am definitely down with women's tennis.
No, I enjoy that. Definitely enjoy that. You know what? We will talk about the NCAA championships. I think, are we going to throw that in here today, or are we going to talk about that later?
No, I think we're going to follow up on that because this does seem to be a larger conversation. And, I had some good conversations with a couple different individuals this last week while researching this topic. And, one of the things that I also want to talk about probably in our next week's episode is looking at the U.S. men's soccer team versus the U.S. soccer team for the women. And I think that's an interesting analysis as well, because the women's soccer team, they've won world championships.
They've won World Cups. They've actually done more.
And so there's a difference between I think a private team such as the MLS. Those are private leagues where if you're representing your country, I think there should be a certain degree of equal pay for equal work, because in essence these are to some extent like a federal job, because they are subsidized by states and governments. NCAA as well, and we'll definitely dive into that to analyze on a future episode, probably next week. We'll spend some time talking about that specifically, but I did want to make sure that we saved some time and reserved some time to move into an area of conversation that unfortunately we didn't have enough time to get to last week. We touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
We really wanted to talk about some entertainment, some television shows, some movies. And last week we were able to get to a couple of movies. We talked about Coming to America, the second movie, and we talked about One Night in Miami.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of our viewers out there or listeners were able to watch those, but hopefully they took James's suggestions and were able to watch those. And so we will move into the entertainment section of our show. But one last comment, we'll go ahead and round this out. Comment made by one of our viewers: meh, women's sports all go hard. If you don't think so, you are thinking Pee-wee sports. Funniest thing I remember from high school, I remember PE baseball, and all the dudes were like, yeah, I could get a hit off this girl softball pitcher, and she dunked on every single one of them. It was awesome. Now I got to go try to remember who she was. I'm pretty sure I had a crush on her. So
no, listen, that's kind of a true thing. I have watched the women's college softball tournaments. That'll blow you away.
I will never. I played baseball. I love baseball. I will never try to pretend like I would be okay going up against a female softball pitcher. That scares me. The way they pitch, no, thank you.
Hard. That for sure. They also go hard. Yeah, as I said before.
Yes.
All right.
I will say I don't necessarily think comparative underhand fast pitching versus overhand fast pitching. I think they are different in style and what you can do with the ball. So just calling that out. But yeah,
That's true.
let's move into entertainment, and let's start. Let's spend a couple minutes talking about WandaVision.
Oh,
So series is wrapped.
right.
You know, it was 9 episodes that aired over 8 weeks,
Yeah.
and you know, we the making of special also came out last week or the week before, Assembled, where they showed a lot of the behind the scenes of how the series was made. And what did you think of the series? You are, you know, we got to preface, you are a comic book nerd, you are a Marvel fan, so keep that in mind, folks. There is some bias here, but
Yeah.
we talk about things that are interesting to us. So go ahead.
Right. And so so I remember when I first saw the show, I called a buddy, Rob Benner, and I was like, you know, what do you think? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, bro, you got to stick with it. Like everything, because this is the second time, even like some of the other shows they've had kind of start slow, but you got to kind of stick with them because there's a bigger picture. And from what I understand, the bigger picture with this film, this show, some things are supposed to tie in with Multiverse of Madness. Now, I thought that's kind of what they were going for, but that also, as the series kind of progressed, changed on me, and threw me just a little bit. I wasn't prepared for some of the changes that they threw in there.
So I'm okay with doing spoilers. I will preface that right now, simply because we are a couple of weeks from the series finale. So if you haven't watched it and you're still listening right now, sorry, but maybe you should push pause and go watch the series and then come back.
Yeah.
And with that being said, you know, I agree with you. The series took us for a loop at a couple different points, you know, such as, you know, in reintroducing us, if you will, to Wanda's brother, who
Pietro
had died back in Age of Ultron, but yet he's there, except, plot twist, it's what at the time we see to be Quicksilver or Pietro or Peter from the Fox cinematic
X-Men
universe.
movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was, man, was fantastic.
I thought that that's the part I'm sorry, I'm gonna get like I got really excited about that part because I was like, bro, are they actually gonna do this now? Like, I thought was going to be the big, like, we've
introduction.
We've in court now, since we have it, we can incorporate it. And so I think that's one of the things, and I think they could have gone a different direction with it, but
except then time for another twist. We find out at the series finale that
just some random actor.
Yeah, he's just some random actor that lives in the city.
I was like, I don't know.
I loved it. I felt like it was so perfect for what Marvel does. You know, it was such the tease to make us think this was the direction they were going, and nope. You know, a couple other teases that were made that were never really addressed in the series. There was a point where, you know, we were told that a scientist was being called, and, you know, a lot of the rumors making the rounds was, is it Reed Richards? Is it Reed Richards? You know, the leader of the Fantastic Four, and we never got it. We never found out who it was. You know, so that's still sitting out there and lingering. I'm
gonna let you go on, but there's one thing that I've actually really liked, and it's actually not even in the shows. It just has to do with the Marvel openings. Now, I don't know if they're gonna do anything that goes back before the snap, or after, you know, but ever since, and I just noticed this on one of the last episodes of WandaVision. Everything that happens after Endgame, it looks like there's that part where Tony snaps in those entrances that I think is going to really give us. I think they're going to start using that as a frame of reference. So this is after that.
Yeah,
or if they happen to do anything like before that, that might not be there. So I'm kind of interested to see if they're going to use kind of that as a time indicator of when that film is taking place.
And that would not be terribly surprising. We've seen them use that opening in many different ways, even within WandaVision itself, switching from the red to purple because Agnes did it. So that wouldn't be terribly surprising to me if they did a future movie that took place prior to Endgame, not including that. They are so good with their Easter eggs. They are so good with planting those little nuancical pieces into their films. So that would not surprise me.
Yeah.
So, I think it was a fantastic series. I enjoyed it. I plan to go back and watch it again. I wish they would make a super edit of it where, you don't have to sit through the credits and everything. Just give me the whole series as like one long movie.
With those, because they did a couple times. There was a couple after credit scenes.
Sure. Yeah. You can keep those in, but
throw those in there as well.
Give me a super edit. That would be so great to just sit and watch the whole thing from start to finish. And since, DC just came out with their 4-hour edit of, Justice League, why not? Let's do it. We're running short on time. So really quickly, I want to touch on Falcon and Winter Soldier, episode 1, which just came out on Friday. Have you had a chance to watch it?
Oh, I watched it twice, bro. Actually, I watched it almost like 3 times because the second time I just kind of went to the end just because I was trying to figure out like who.
Hold on.
What was going on?
I don't want to give any spoilers away on this one.
Right.
I just still a little loose. But overall, your feelings on the show?
Again, it was one of those. The first episode, it starts off kind of slow, but I think. Seeing the Winter Soldier in action outside before Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, that was awesome to see. And seeing Sam on his own doing a mission with the Falcon suit, which was amazing. That whole sequence was pretty dope, and so I'm interested to see where they go with seeing Sebastian grow as a character, becoming really reintegrated into society after so long.
Also known as Bucky Barnes.
Bucky Barnes, yeah, and so that's all right. His real name is Sebastian. Sorry, but yeah, no, I'm really interested to see where they go with that.
Yeah, I am too. I really enjoyed the first episode. So I'm excited for the second one this week. And, unfortunately we're short on time. So we're not going to get to, any more depth on that. And we're not going to be able to get to 2 more things that I was hoping to get to, but I will call them out because if you are listening or watching, I would say, see what you can find out on this, because we will be talking about this. Mrs. Doubtfire, evidently, originally when filmed, was edited for a PG cut, PG-13, R, and NC-17. I want that NC-17 version. And lastly, the one other thing I wanted to talk about that likely we'll try to get to next time is Captain Eeyore. Not to be confused with Captain EO from Disneyland, Captain Eeyore. So if you're interested, look for it. It's out there. So with that being said, please, we hope you enjoyed our broadcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Go back, re-listen to this broadcast starting in just a few hours via Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, or Spotify. Also, be on the lookout for the video of this broadcast via YouTube later this week.
All right.
So we hope you enjoyed, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Bye-bye.